Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Christian Called Conservatives. So, I'm excited to share with you all that I had my first couple of exchanges with people who are more left leaning as a right leaning person. So, some posts that I made on Facebook, and then I had a conversation with somebody that was like off and on for a week. So, let me tell you about that. Let me start by saying I have never been, whether I was right or left or right leaning, I never put anything on my Facebook. You couldn't really tell what I was um, once upon a time, but probably around maybe 4 months ago, I started posting just little snippets for people to say, oh, okay, she's sounding more like she's on the right. Never did I say or post, I'm a Republican or libertarian, or I have never done anything like that. But I did start off by posting things like when Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss and some other books and movies were considered racially insensitive or whatever they said about those things. And I would post something and then someone would respond by saying, at least regarding the Dr. Seuss, and Dr. Seuss was racist anyway, and he needed to be off. And so I would make a comment about their comment. It was a very civil exchange. That was cool. But recently, I had posted about on my Facebook regarding Black Lives Matter and a 7-year-old who was killed by a gang affiliated exchange or what have you. So I posted on Facebook, well, where's Black Lives Matter? And someone had commented basically telling me like what was the purpose of bringing up Black Lives Matter. And so we were going back and forth as far as, well, if Black Lives Matter, so should this 7-year-old. And so he was telling me how that's not their agenda. So he was very pleasant. So he agreed with me how, well, yeah, all lives should matter, but that with BLM, maybe it didn't fit their agenda. And I was just saying, I don't get it. Like, if all lives matter, this little girl who was killed should matter. And also the gang affiliated killings and the homicides, black on black, they should matter. And he was like, oh, be careful. Don't say black on black. Say inter-community something, inter-community activity. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about black on black murder. And he was saying how if you say black on black, that I'll get, you'll get blasted. And I'm like, not that he would, but I guess maybe people who fall in the lines of BLM. And I was like, I don't get it. It's black on black. That's what I'm talking about. And so anyway, but like I said, that was a pleasant exchange. No big deal. But like I said, so on the Facebook, I'll put in little pictures and little headlines and things that I get from like different websites different sites that I follow, and just ask the question, hey, any feedback? And a lot of times I don't get feedback. And sometimes I do. Like I said, the BLM and when Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss were considered racist. So it's been interesting. So it's not like I'm trying to start a war or anything. So it's okay that I don't have a lot of exchanges. Like I said, I'm slowly but surely starting to post things on my Facebook. And you guys already know about my Instagram. I'll tell you anyway. Facts versus Feelings 2021. And that's the hardcore big time. There's no secret there. So let me tell you about the conversation that I had. Conversation that I had with an old friend of mine. I had not spoken to this person a really long time. I'm talking about things and she's like, oh, you're sounding like you're moving over. Like I said, this is the person who knows that I've always had more of conservative views on different things, even though I was a registered Democrat. She knows that I had more of a right-leaning views on a lot of different things. And so conversing with her, and she's telling me about different things with her. And so here's how it all started. She had a very difficult exchange with the police. She was sitting in a parking lot, not in her state. I guess she was doing business. And she was in the car in the parking lot in the middle of the afternoon. And she was trying to put something into her phone. I guess she had to, I don't know, put in some information in the phone. And the police knock on her door or on the window and they ask for her ID. And she is a very boisterous person. And she says, well, why? And she says the cop was very rude and was like, I asked you for your ID. So she gives the ID and like, what is going on? What's wrong? And then the cop comes back, and I guess she registered as fine. And the cop said, well, there was suspicious activity. And so she was like, well, what about that person over there? A white person, another vehicle. And the cop does not say whether he's going to stop and ask about that person. So my friend was very upset. Was she stopped? Why did the cop go after her? Must have been because she was racist. The cop was racist. And I'm thinking, why does it have to go that far? Like, could it have just been, one, maybe suspicious activity. Two, maybe the cop is racist. Three, maybe because your plates are from another state and you're clearly not from here. And we don't know. But my thing is with her was, why are you jumping so quick to say race? We don't know the environment that you're in. And maybe there is a high Black crime in that area. I don't know. But why do we have to first jump to race? And so she was just beyond herself that I would even say something like that. Another topic that came up with her was regarding women's healthcare. Why is it that women have really bad healthcare? And I'm thinking to myself, my healthcare is quite excellent. I don't know what you're talking about. So is hers. So I don't know what she's referencing. Now, I'm sure she's referencing inner city women who are on the system, who have to be dependent on, clinics that will take their Medicare or Medicaid, whatever it is. And yes, unfortunately, the healthcare is not the same in different cities, what kind of insurance you have. And so, yes, a particular person may have not the greatest of healthcare, but if you have access, and unfortunately, if you have money, you get better healthcare. Same thing when you go to a restaurant. The higher the quality, the better care you're going to get. So I wasn't really entertaining that idea that it's the man that's making it bad for women to have good health care. I don't see it. And she made reference to I guess it was a news broadcast that was on NPR about women who were getting sterilized, Native American women who were getting sterilized without them knowing, without their consent. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that was a thing back in the 20, 30, 40, 50s. For Black women. And so she was saying, no, it's still going on now. So of course, me doing due diligence, I said, let me get back to you. I did my research on that NPR report, and it was actually women in Canada, Saskatchewan in particular, where yes, there are some Native American women even today who are getting sterilized where they can't have any children. And the thing that I had mentioned back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up into the 80s, it was called Mississippi appendectomy. So we're talking 1920s to 1980s, where doctors were giving women hysterectomies, telling them that it was their appendix. So yes, that was a thing back then, not now. And so she was telling me how it was happening now. It's happening now to Native American women. So I had to text her back after doing my research and say, actually, that NPR report was about something happening in Canada. So she says, oh, thank you. And that was the end of that. But here's the big kicker that might not end our relationship, but it was definitely a heated discussion about systematic racism. And she was very nice to say, well, you need to look up what it is. I was like, you need to look up what it is. And so we were going back and forth as far as like what it was and what it meant. And I was telling her that there is no law currently in the 21st century that inhibits Black people from doing something. Find me one. And she couldn't give me one. And so that's when she mentioned about that whole, the doctors giving these, sterilizing women. And I'm like, that's not systematic racism. That might be a code among those doctors to perform procedures like that, but that's not a law. And so she kept saying but that's an example. I'm like, but that's illegal. There's no law that says that we're going to sterilize Native American women. That's just not happening. Now, like I said, that might be a code amongst a particular group of doctors that hush, we're going to do this and not tell these Native American women. That's one thing. But systematic racism is a law. We're talking Jim Crow. We're talking what happened with Brown versus Board of Education, where segregation was okay. That's a law. That's not just onesie twosie. That was law. But there's nothing currently going on right now in the 21st century that says Black or Hispanic people can't enjoy the beauty of life just like white people. So I'm still waiting because she was like, you need to look it up. And I'm like, well, you need to look it up. And so we haven't finished our conversation. So we'll see what happens. So anyway, that was the end of that. It was really cool though. But it was okay. It was okay. She was actually quite proud that I had done my research. So anyway, but I want to leave you with this regarding what I mentioned earlier as far as Facebook posts. I did want to mention it in a video this week, but I didn't want to make it a separate video. I'll just add it here. There is a Facebook post that I made Saturday regarding what the President of the United States said about the January 6th insurrection and how it was the worst attack on our land since the Civil War. I'm past pissed. I'm offended by that, and that's what I said on my Facebook and my Instagram, that I'm offended by that. As someone who served in the military, granted, I may not have served long, but I served right after our towers were hit 9/11. Probably maybe less than a year I signed up to join the military, active military service. And so for him to say that the insurrection where one person died, not 5, do your research, one person was shot, and that's Ms. Abbott. Matter of fact, they still don't know who the shooter was, by the way. Somebody in that building, one of the officers who worked there shot Ashley Abbott. That's the only person who was killed. The other people were killed. Either it was because they died of natural causes, because a heart attack, and there was an aneurysm not related to that event. So one person died versus with 9/11, several thousand. But you're saying the January 6th was the worst that ever happened on our land? That's an insult to those who served. That's an insult to the people who worked on the ground at 9/11. That's an insult to the people, the men and women who had to deploy to Iraq and Afghanistan time after time, going back 2, 3, 4 times for a deployment, and to say that the insurrection, notice I keep putting it in air quotes because I don't believe it was an insurrection. It was a gathering that went really bad, really bad. And what about with BLM and Antifa? Burning down buildings? People have died. People, plural, have died. One person died from what happened in January 6th. But what Black Lives Matter and Antifa are doing, burning buildings down, people have died. At least with the insurrection, people were able to go back to work that same day. They were able to resume order in the Capitol building that's several hours later, if not a couple hours later. But what BLM is burning down buildings, Minnesota, and whatever's happening in other cities, and you're trying to tell me that was the worst thing that ever happened on our land? Mr. President, I do ask you to reconsider what you said that day in your address to Congress, which was not even all of Congress. But that's another story for another time. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that piece in because that is a post that I put. I did not get feedback on that. I think I had some hearts and some thumbs up regarding that, but I didn't get any feedback about that. So I'll be curious to see if anybody does. So anyway, that was really it for today. I just wanted to share with you how I'm starting to get some dialogue, which is really good. The whole purpose of this is to start getting some conversation, some dialogue, so I can learn, you can learn, we can learn together, so we can try to figure out how to take care of this nation of ours, because we've just got one. So anyway, if this was helpful to you, entertaining for you, inspiring to you, go ahead and give this a thumbs up for me. Consider subscribing to the channel. Share the video with a friend. Share the video with someone who's not a friend. But definitely the whole purpose is to share and to give and to get information. So I thank you. I thank you for joining Christian Cult Conservative, and I will see you soon. Take care. God bless.